That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.
Let's get away from current events. As far away as possible, I suppose. Now, I guess as far away as possible from current events would be like before the universe or whatever. Zorro rides again. So this is probably one of those weird circulation issues that happens with comic books where it's the same writer, it's the same artist, it's the same character, it's the same run. But we're now in a different volume. We're on volume 1 of Zorro Rides Again. I'm assuming volume 3 didn't sell very well, and so they had to end the Zorro book under Dynamite Entertainment and thus start up Zorro Rides Again. I don't know how much later or whatever. It's whatever. It's all over the place. It's crazy. I have no idea why it works out this way. But Zorro Montez's. Yeah. Oh, McGregor. I'll have to look that one up. Anyway, so this really is just one of those weird publishing things that happens. Mostly I'm annoyed because it says Volume 1 on the side, and the last one said Volume 3, so when I put them on my shelf, it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Anyway, this book is actually in its cover, which is, nice. Right away from the very beginning, I actually really like this touch. So, the inside cover has, your Z, and there's some kind of red outline, but when you go to the next page, that's what you're seeing on the Z, or through the Z, is that image, and I thought that was pretty clever of them to do. So it literally is cut through the book in that way, or not literally, but that's what it looks like. So now, as I said, Tales from the Fox didn't really have much. Tales of the Fox didn't really have much plot to it. It was mostly just people telling stories about Zorro. Whereas this is really advancing the plot and continuing the whole thing with Diego's father finding out about, with Alejandro finding out about the Zorro identity, and with the Alkalade and the captain, I believe he is, dealing with trying to steal land that has gold in it, and so all that stuff is continuing, and it isn't wrapped up entirely here, but it's certainly nipped up a lot more. And in the first issue of this run, we also get the beginnings of a woman that Zorro was able to save, but she wasn't able to save her husband and child. Now, looking for Zorro, trying to find him because of an interest in his crusade, I guess we'll call it. And I fully expect that to go on. What else really goes on here? Alejandro doesn't know whether or not to confront Diego about it. Just going to flip through the book and tell you the story. Gonzalez, every time Gonzalez fights Zorro, he's getting another Z carved into him somewhere. To the point where at the end he's told to take off his shirt and stuff, and is just covered in Z's, which is terrifying. Alejandro deals with not being as young as he once was, so he's not able to be any help to his son or to the people as a swordsman anymore. Keep going. Alejandro and... God, what's his name? I don't know, the captain that is a really good swordsman. He and Alejandro have a duel, and Alejandro ends up dying as a result of it, and is brought back to the Diego house, De La Vega hacienda. There we go. While still like clinging on to life, and he's able to tell Diego that he's proud of him and that he knows. And the woman that Zorro saved is in town, and Alejandro's death incites outrage in the community, and the Alcalde goes to clear things up with the magistrate of the territory, the governor, basically, and leaves the captain in charge, knowing that he's probably not going to survive the night. And so all the Dons gather to yell at and criticize the captain, and Diego goes to fight him as he tries to escape in a barn. It's this, like, their fight gets the barn caught on fire, and Diego ends up taking off his mask to reveal to him who he is. And I don't love the look of Diego here. He just looks too much like Bruce Wayne to me. Really? I mean, is that just me, or does that really just look like Bruce Wayne Batman? I don't know. It's that they have Zorro be the one that doesn't have a mustache, and Diego's the one that like has a fake mustache on, where I prefer it to be the other way around. Just because that seems like that would make more sense. I mean, he's already putting all this other stuff on. So takes off his mask and then kills the captain. Yeah. Kills the captain, and the rioters end up dispersing under threat of military charge. And Diego feels actually really terrible about having killed the guy, and goes to tell his father that he'll never kill again later on in the book. And he gives like this really cool speech to the crowd that gathered outside the Alcalades. And he says, "Caballeros, Californians, you are right to raise your voices against this tragedy. There will never be freedom until every man is safe from brutality and oppression. We must never give in to the forces of corruption and greed. Justice, justice for all," he says as he takes off. And this really does it shows it's able, because Diego now is the sole heir to the De La Vega properties, and because the other family that he was trying to protect, the family with the land with the gold on it, they leave for Spain and leave him in charge of their lands, which makes Diego one of the most powerful men in California now, because he has so much property and wealth at this point that he's like, if you mess with him, he has everything to bring down on you. Which is really fascinating. And then here's that panel I was talking about where Gonzalez is forced to take off his shirt. It just shows you just how scarred up this dude is. Sorry, I'm using the viewfinder here. Just covered in disease because of all the encounters he's had with Zorro. And so he's discharged because he's a constant reminder of the failures of the regime to be able to capture and imprison Zorro. And then, as I said, Diego promises he'll never kill again in anger. And then Gonzalez goes out into exile and decides that he will be El Galgo, the Hound, whose only purpose and desire is to hunt down and destroy the fox. And that's what we're left with. So we're given a much bigger advance in the plot. One of our main antagonists is dead. The Alcalade has very little chance of taking possession of the gold now that Diego's in charge of it, and his father was just killed by the state in what is easily considered a completely unjustified murder. And Zorro is now undeniably known not only to the commoners but to the Dons as well. So he is very much a public figure now. And we have Diego realizing that it's not just about him, because that's kind of the thing is he started this because of, he didn't start all of it, but he started this in part because of how his father was treated. But now his father's dead, and he doesn't care. He's still going to be Zorro. It's about justice now. It's not about family at all. It's very not personal for Diego anymore, and that's what I really like. Like, it's a weird thing. With most characters, you want them to have some kind of personal stake in whatever the issue is. You know, Batman wants to stop all crime because of his own personal tragedy that led him to that led him to seek out this goal of ending crime in Gotham City. Luke Skywalker's family was killed, or uncle and aunt were killed by the Empire, so he's got a personal motivation for a while. You know, it's just good to give your hero a kind of personal stake in the matter. But Zorro's one of the characters where I don't like that. I actually really prefer, in my own mind at least, for Zorro to be entirely without motivation to help people, or without reason to help people, but to do it because it's the right thing to do. I like the idea that all Diego has to do to have a perfect life is just sit back and do nothing, and everything will work out for him just fine. So the act of being Zorro is a cost to him, but it's a cost that he finds worthwhile. And I just feel like Zorro should be so attached to the people in that way that he's willing to give everything up with absolutely nothing to gain from it. But yeah, it's really, really good book, and it just advances the whole thing, and it's so enjoyable. There's a lot of humor, there's a lot of great action. I mean, sword fights are always cool. And the way the art handles some of these sword fights is really brilliant. The sound effects, the clings, the clangs, and everything that are written on the panels look fantastic. And the forms that the characters are drawn in actually do look like fencing and not just, you know, swashbuckling sword fighting. But yeah. Really, really great book. Really enjoyed this. I know that a lot of people aren't Zorro fans, so I hope I'm not turning people off by talking about, you know, Zorro books. But maybe if what I'm saying sounds really cool, really interesting to you, you'll pick it up and read it for yourself, because I do feel like it's worthwhile. They're pretty cheap on Amazon, so it's definitely worth getting. But I really, really enjoyed the hell out of these. And that'll do it for this week's episode of Comic Reviews. I don't have a ton to say about this. It's definitely not very high concept. It is pretty straight storyline stuff. There's not a lot of themes or anything going on in this arc. It is a pretty by the book Zorro story. And that's fine, because that's the kind of stuff I like. I love when stories get very metaphorical and very deep and interesting intellectually, but I also like to take a break from that every so often and just get a good, solid story. And the other volumes have had enough about legends and about righteousness and stuff that I've felt satisfied enough with that so far. And we are getting the idea of legacy starting to kick in here. Now I think about it, because we have the female character who I believe will end up becoming like a sidekick or a female Zorro or something. And then we have his father worrying about the legacy or wondering about the legacy that he's left, and realizing that his son is a better man than he ever could have hoped to be. And that's really great stuff too. So yeah, there's a lot of legacy in this, but it's very, very subtextual. Because I didn't pick up on it until I really started just thinking for a second or two there about if there's anything else thematic. But yeah, that'll do it for this week's episode of Comic Reviews. I hope you enjoyed. Nice angsty cover panel, though. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you continue to watch. I think I've got the last Zorro book I'm going to have for at least a little while. Like I said, I'm going to look up this what was it called? Zorro Mantanzas. Matanas? I'm gonna look that up and see if I can get a hold of that, but that'll be on my list for another day. Everyone, thank you very much for watching. Until next time, bye.
That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.